Ah, Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant.
Whoa, that's refreshing.
And a 9.5 plus pH for every way you move.
I did take a Spain class today.
Restoring like a pro. Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant. For those with a taste for taste. Grab yours today.
Today on CityCast Boise, Canyon County Pride is back, and it's bigger and bolder than ever. And after a year where LGBTQ rights have been under fire, this event is more than just a party. It comes with deeper questions about safety, acceptance, and what it means to celebrate queer joy in a conservative stronghold. It's Thursday, June 5th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. Here to give us more insight is the Canyon County Pride Executive Director, Tom Wheeler. Thanks for joining me today, Tom.
So excited to be here. Happy Pride.
Yeah, happy Pride Month. But we are coming off a legislative session that was one of the most anti-LGBTQ in Idaho's history. How is that shaping the way that you're thinking about Pride this year?
To me, it solidifies why we do Pride. Pride originated as a protest decades ago in Greenwich Village in New York and was really a result of mistreatment of LGBTQ people. And so that theme and that passion for elevating the visibility of LGBTQ people could not be any more true as it is now.
And lawmakers pointed to Canyon County Pride specifically as justification for House Bill 270, the anti-trans indecent exposure bill. Did that impact any aspect of how you approached planning this year's festival?
You know, we realize that the Idaho legislature is more obsessed with LGBTQ people than issues that really truly affect Idahoans. And with that, we are aware that folks are more or less watching us. And so that's not something that LGBTQ people and really any underrepresented groups not used to, is being surveilled and watched. And at the end of the day, people are people, and Canyon County Pride can't control every single individual. And really, it's something where we're just really aligned with what our mission is, which is to elevate visibility and exposure of LGBTQ people as their authentic selves in a family-friendly setting in Canyon County.
Well, Tom, I hope you don't think this is too irreverent, but we know that people are watching this Pride, that people are really keeping a close eye on it. So do you have any guesses about laws they might try to introduce after Canyon County Pride this year?
You know, it's a shot in the dark, right? Like, I just really feel like there are such bigger issues we could be tackling as a legislative body, and yet we're focused on less than 1% of the population who really are not affecting the lives of day-to-day Idahoans, really just trying to be themselves. We could place bets at this point as to what will be brought up this next legislative session, but we're really intentional about creating a safe and welcoming environment. Our number one priority has always been safety and welcoming everyone. And so we stay committed to doing that and bringing some amazing programming. And if legislature comes together and proposes some bills because of something they don't like they see, then I guess it's the reality of organizing a community movement to exist in 2025.
I'm sure it'll be something like too many people can't be having fun in a park or something like that.
It'll probably come from some top-down playbook. I know they're trying to go after libraries and different things, so it's hard to say. But like I said, we try to stay focused on just the sheer joy of folks who come through the festival grounds and are so excited that something like this exists. We try not to let the extreme minority of voices kind of crowd the room when there really is an overpouring support from all walks of life.
And Tom, how is Canyon County Pride fundamentally different from Boise Pride? What makes this event feel uniquely authentic to Canyon County?
Yeah, we are great partners to Boise Pride. They're amazing. And they started in the 90s. So they have, decades of experience. And for Canyon County, this is unique in that it exists in a very extreme climate, I would say. Boise is one of those little cities out of the state that is more welcoming to diversity in thought. And so we realize that being in a place like Canyon County is a different climate. And through my eyes, at least, it seems like that's even more reason to have pride. But I think what makes it so unique is that it feels so grassroots. It really is created for and by the community. And you see a representation of that throughout the entire festival. The vendors, the performers, the volunteers, folks on our board. It really is comprised by and for LGBTQ people and allies in Canyon County.
And why does holding Pride in Canyon County feel so significant, especially given the region's politics and culture?
I think it's more important now than it really ever has been to celebrate pride in places where you wouldn't expect it. I think that pride doesn't only exist in major cities where there's diversity and where there's welcoming environments. And the original dream of pride last year, as our first year, was that we would pull together some park benches and welcome a bunch of diverse and queer folks who are neighbors in Nampa and come together and celebrate pride. And the reality is we have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on temporary fencing and private security and all those other measures that we know are important because of what we've seen happen in other prides across the state, like Rexburg and like North Idaho.
And I agree with you. I mean, personally, I love these smaller prides. I love Boise Pride too. That's not any shade to Boise Pride. I also love Boise Pride, but it does feel unique and it feels like resistance to be openly, authentically being yourself in a space that hasn't been welcoming to that and has tried to shut that down for decades or forever.
Yeah, it is super unique. I mean, it almost feels like an act of bravery. I mean, speaking to that resistance, it feels like an act of bravery for those folks who choose to join us in the festival that day. I know there's so many folks out there that have safety concerns, and we've gone above and beyond taking really aggressive security measures last year as our first year and continuing to do so. This year we've doubled private security measures and all the things, but it is an act of bravery to step out in a community where it's not as welcome to be yourself and celebrate pride. And that is what's felt at that festival when folks walk through the entrance of the festival with just the most amazing heartfelt smiles that they're in their little hometown, and they have the right to do so. And I feel really grateful for the opportunity to partner with folks in Canyon County to bring this to life because we're all in it together.
Well, and I really want to get into how much Canyon County Pride has grown in just 1 year. Like I'm still amazed by this. Tom, you tripled the festival footprint. You've doubled the security budget. What does that kind of scale up look like behind the scenes?
Yeah, it's so exciting. And it's also, there's some pressure because it's Canyon County and there's a very real presence of, we don't have like any credible threats or anything to that effect. It's just overall the feeling operating in this place is that we have to be really diligent and very thorough. And last year we saw how much of a need there was. We planned it in 21 days. Again, it was envisioned as a few picnic benches. We did have about 30 vendors last year and a lineup, but the event was only from 1 to 4. And it was shoulder to shoulder. At one point, we thought we would have to kind of not allow anyone else in, which was just overwhelming and so positive. So this year we're going from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So we'll have a full true day festival. And yeah, to your point, we've tripled the fence line. We've doubled our private security. So it's really rewarding because we've also tripled our vendor list. We have nearly 100 vendors, art vendors, food vendors, informational vendors, all predominantly Canyon County that have come forth excited to participate. And so we're all kind of anxiously awaiting to see the response of attendance because last year was so impressive and exciting to see. And we're excited to see it continue to grow.
Speaking of having all of these new vendors who are primarily based in Canyon County, do you feel like that's a sign the community is rallying around this event? Last year, the Nampa mayor was somewhat derogatory towards the event. There was a lot of outcry about it. But potentially are vendors a sign that the community has accepted or is embracing this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everyone has something to offer, and I think that speaks to the unique experience where it really is community driven and it feels so authentic in that way, where you have this sweet old lady on 7th Street in Nampa who's like, "Hey, I'm making cookies and I have a cute little shop. Can I be a vendor?" And it's like, absolutely. We have just the most amazing set of locally owned businesses, restaurants, informational booths, nonprofits. And so seeing that rich culture all happen in one place speaks to the need that the community has for this. And I think it means so much to these folks who've lived in Nampa their entire lives and maybe felt like they weren't welcome. This is when they get to see that there are 100 businesses in their community who are supportive. And, beyond the warm and fuzzy feelings of being in community with people who are respectful and get to be their authentic selves, like, let's talk about the GDP we're bringing to the city of Nampa. We're spending tens of thousands of dollars and we're bringing people to the city, whether they're local or driving in to experience what Nampa has to offer and spend their dollars investing in the Nampa community. And it just all in all is a win-win for Nampa and Canyon County.
Hey Boise, it's Lindsay. Let's keep it real. If you've got something great to offer, like a business or an event, you should be advertising with us. People in Boise trust us to tell them what's good, and that could be you. Our listeners care about what's happening, and they love a good local recommendation. So if you want to make sure the best audience in town knows about you, then advertise on CityCast Boise. Learn more by emailing us at ads@citycast.fm. That's ads@citycast.fm.
Hank's the family fixer, always with his tool belt. But living with prostate cancer, he needed help. He asked his doctor about Xtandi and enzalutamide. Xtandi 40 milligram tablets treats men with prostate cancer that has spread to other parts of the body and responds to a medical or surgical treatment to lower testosterone. Xtandi may cause serious side effects: seizure, a brain condition called PRES, allergic reactions, heart disease that can lead to death, falls and bone fractures, swallowing problems, or choking that can lead to death. Stop Xtandi and get medical help at once if your face, tongue, lip, or throat start swelling. Tell your doctor at once if you faint, have a seizure, quickly worsening headache, decreased alertness, confusion, vision problems, chest pain or discomfort, or shortness of breath. Xtandi can cause harm to an unborn baby or miscarriage. Use birth control during and 3 months after Xtandi. Common side effects include muscle and joint pain, feeling unusually tired, hot flashes, constipation, less appetite, diarrhea, high blood pressure, bleeding, falls, fractures, and headache. Talk to your doctor and visit xtandi.com.
Tom, Canyon County is one of the reddest counties in a ruby red state. And like you mentioned, it seems like people are coming out of the woodwork wanting to offer support. Do you think that there was potentially support all along, but people felt isolated or alone, or like they didn't really know how to support the LGBTQ community, and potentially this has lit a spark that has grown in this community?
Oh, I think 100%. People give me a hard time because I'm not a resident of Nampa. And I always have to talk about the fact that my co-organizers, folks on my board, are queer and BIPOC folks in Nampa. And they share stories. One of my board members shares a story. He flies the pride flag on his front step, and he was getting intimidation from the city for how his lawn was being upkept. And so it's like these little acts of intimidation really hinder a community member from being brave enough to say, hey, I'm going to stand up and put my name and address on this application to throw this Pride Festival. And so I credit this festival to the folks who are brave living in Nampa. I just feel like I was really grateful to come along in this journey as an advocate and LGBTQ business owner in the Treasure Valley to say, hey, this is needed. And to your point, I do think that once people were given an outlet and shown the way, an overwhelming amount of support has come forth to show the need for this. It's just that I think there was a lack of a starting point. But Canyon County Pride is here, and we're excited to see it grow year over year.
And speaking to that story about intimidation, I know that there are concerns about safety at this festival. And in other interviews, you've described this as one of the safest Pride events in the state. Can you walk me through exactly what you've done this year to help people feel secure attending Pride?
Yeah, so we do something unique. So Canyon County Pride is the permit holder for Lakeview Park Saturday and Sunday. The event is only Sunday, but we've made reservation to do our due diligence for setup and teardown. And during that time, we're the permit holder and we have certain rights to that space. And with that, having a confined, safe, secure perimeter with 6-foot privacy fencing, so it has a privacy cloth. That way, what happens in the festival is really encapsulating the queer joy, and we're not surveilled because we already are, constantly surveilled. So we're really diligent about having a perimeter for security purposes. And then we also really recognize the challenging relationship with police presence and underrepresented communities. And so we've developed a amazing partnership with Nampa PD, and they really respect our intentions to keep it as joy-filled as possible. So Nampa PD is present on the exterior of the festival just to ensure that in the event something worst case scenario occurs, they're present, they're available. But on the interior of the festival, we just have our highly trained private security team who works Boise Pride as well. So they're familiar with these types of events. They're absolutely amazing. And so, when folks arrive, there's designated areas for protesters because we know they're our biggest super fans, and they'll be there at Pride just like they are at every single Pride. And we have a designated space for these individuals. And once you enter the park, protesters are not allowed past certain areas within the park. And then once you've entered the festival grounds, you'll have private security doing a very, a visual check and a few other sort of security measures to make sure that when you've entered, you're in a super safe space. So the reason we go above and beyond to keep it safe is because we know that LGBTQ people know what it feels like to have safety needs be a question in day-to-day life. And so we want to make sure when you come to Canyon County Pride, you can have live your best life. Buy a Clack fan, get a turkey leg, see an amazing drag performance, live your life for a day in Canyon County.
And Tom, this year is a little different, just to add another layer onto everything. And Canyon County has a significant Latinx and Hispanic community. Has that shaped your approach to safety, especially given fears around immigration enforcement?
Absolutely. Yeah, we are fully aware that there's a huge Latinx population in Canyon County. We're not naive to the fact that these folks have legitimate concerns for attending any public gathering. And so very early on, we partnered with ACLU of Idaho to have discussions around what to expect. And ACLU of Idaho has been an amazing resource to give us updates on what to expect when it comes to ICE. We've been told, great detail about how many ICE agents at the moment are overseeing the state of Idaho and Montana. In general, they're understaffed. And so what has been communicated to the ACLU of Idaho is that these folks are not going after educational events and church events and public events, and that they're under capacity to begin with. We also, as the permit holder of the space, have a legal right to who enters and who leaves. And we have a very sturdy chain of command and procedure for who enters and who doesn't. Again, Pride is this opportunity for us to get our faces painted and see an amazing drag show, but also become intimately aware of what our rights are in participating in society in 2025. And we get to do both at the same time.
It really feels like, as you're describing all of this preparation, everything going into this, it does feel a little bit like the tension of just being a queer person in Idaho at all times, where you're wanting to live your life, you're wanting to be joyful and be yourself, and then there's also the tension of where we live and what people expect or want to see as the norm here. Do you feel like, as you've been planning this, it really mirrors the experience of LGBTQ Idahoans?
Yeah, I mean, again, this one-day festival has such a positive impact in all areas of a queer person's life. not only is it this amazing festival that happens during Pride Month on a Sunday, but the work that goes into partnerships with the city, partnerships with Nampa PD, partnerships with the Parks and Rec Department, partnerships and conversations with vendors. I mean, it's all a conversation starter around the reality that we all coexist. And it's been, in a lot of ways, healing, I think, for myself and my board members, particularly those who've lived in Nampa, who've sat in boardrooms with the mayor of Nampa and with the chief of police, and been able to be seen as a queer person and have their stories heard as residents with kids in the school system. And I think that that's what this is all about. You know, the root of anger and misunderstanding is just fear and a lack of education. And we're so much more alike than we are different. I think people, especially now, want to, engage in identity politics, and we're either this or we're that. And it's like, an LGBTQ person is more than just LGBTQ. They're also parents. They're also siblings. They're also coworkers. They're also, you name it, right? And so I just think that this is such an amazing opportunity for the community to come together and be in community, because that's what it's all about.
Tom, something else I wanted to touch on, the festival is on Sunday, and the very first item on the schedule is an interfaith religious service. Why did you choose to include a religious service as part of Pride?
Again, we are all about starting conversation. And I think there is a huge misunderstanding that LGBTQ people are inherently separate from any religion. It's like an age-old adage that in particular religions, if you're LGBTQ, you're inherently bad or evil. And I think that a lot of LGBTQ folks have religious trauma and experiences where they are in a part of what is their world, their religion, and their religion completely rejects them and abandons them because of who they are. And the reality is that's not what God is all about. God, let's list the 10 commandments, and every single one of them will align with loving your neighbor, love yourself as you would others, right? So the idea here is to, hopefully bridge a gap for those folks who've been kicked out of their church or their religious organization or their faith-based organization, and welcome them back in and say, hey, you're actually very welcome here. You were made in the eyes of God. You are perfect. And if it's not God, insert faith or tradition. So we really wanted to make sure it was inclusive. It wasn't just church. I mean, we have an array of tradition and religion all wrapped into this amazing ceremony that starts the day off on a Sunday morning, where folks will hopefully be given an opportunity to heal some religious trauma, be in community. And for me personally, it's a statement to, again, the misunderstanding that LGBTQ people are separate from God. We're all created in the eyes of God. We're all perfect. And for those who are coming together in a church service thinking otherwise, we'll pray for you.
Tom, despite the challenges and all of the extensive planning and the tension, what gives you the most hope about the future of Pride in Canyon County and across Idaho?
I just think about the stories that are shared from individuals who've lived in Nampa their entire life. One particular instance was at a most recent city council meeting. This individual bravely came up and testified, saying that they've lived in Nampa their entire life. They're 55 and finally decided that it was time to come out and be their authentic self, and that Canyon County Pride was their first time in their city that they grew up in attending a Pride, and how profound that was for them. And so I just am so hopeful by all walks of life rejoicing in queer joy. And, I'm really inspired by, I have an 81-year-old great gay uncle who survived the AIDS pandemic. You think about the difference in times we're in, and what's similar is the need for being our authentic selves and being heard and seen. That's the beauty of America, is we've all come together as a melting pot to experience our First Amendment rights. And Pride is the perfect example of that.
Well, Tom, thank you so much. It sounds like it's going to be a hell of a Pride festival, or a heaven of a Pride festival since there's a religious service. I don't know. But thank you so much for diving into it and explaining what's been going on in the background and all the work you've done to plan.
We can't wait to see you there. Sunday, June 8th.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure and check out our Hey Boise newsletter for more local events. We'll be back tomorrow morning with our Friday news roundup. Catch you then.